Hey everybody, we're here to go ahead and finish up the glass replacement on this Motorola Moto X 2nd gen. I shouldn't say finish up, I mean actually start the glass replacement portion. What we need to do is make sure that we've pulled these ribbon cables up away from this little foam padding. It might rip the little foam padding underneath it, and that's fine. Just try to be as careful as possible. We don't want to damage these cables. Let's pull them straight back. You can see that right here is where the foam's pulled up. Not that big of a deal. For this particular process, you're going to need a few playing cards. I find to be some of the easiest, or really thin guitar picks work really well also. You also need a heat source of some sorts. I'm going to use a hot air soldering iron or a hot air gun. You can use a heat gun, or people have used a hairdryer. You know, I've never actually used one, but I hear that it does work. So the goal of this particular step in the glass replacement, we need to remove the plastic housing, the frame around the phone or the bezel. And to do that, we're just going to heat up the edges of the device here, where it's got the double-sided tape that holds it down. Now we want to get it nice and warm, but we don't want to get it too hot, as the plastic bezel will melt. So we're just going to get it warm to the touch, and then right where it's cracked, you can see it's got a pretty good start on it. We're just going to put our playing card in and see if we can't move our way around the phone here. Basically just trying to cut the adhesive a little bit. You want to be careful around the back side or the top side of the phone here not to damage the display cables as you're doing this. So we'll start down here at the bottom next. Let's see if we can't get our way through. Just checking to see if I'm going underneath this cable here. Now you can actually remove the little metal housing off the back as well. It'll come off in just a few seconds in the video. But if you want to, you can actually just pop it off. Just unclip the little clips here and it'll pull right out for you. Now it seems like, honestly, in some places of this particular phone, they used an actual glue instead of just double-sided tape. It seems like it may have been glued down at some point. I'm not sure if that's just this phone. This is the first one that I've done, and this is the first glass replacement that I'm attempting on the 2nd gen Moto X. But trying to get this to pop off here is a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. I mean, it's not extremely hard, but so we got the separation here down here at the bottom we're looking for, but right here in the corner it's giving us a little bit of trouble. Now as you're separating this, you want to make sure that your card that you're using is behind the actual AMOLED display and not in between it. We're not trying to separate the LCD from the glass just yet. We're just trying to separate the glass and the display from the bezel. So we're just going to heat up this side down here, get it nice and warm. So we can't work our way down. Right here is being really tricky for some reason. Just does not want to come off. Now you want to resist the temptation to pull on the plastic back from the phone, because that'll usually just crack it, and then you have to buy a whole new bezel. Which I'd actually almost suggest doing the glass replacement is just buying a brand new bezel. We're going to give it a little bit more heat here. Go ahead and try to get it to start the separation process again. There we go. We're making decent progress now. There's the little metal housing that's going to pop off for us. Like I was saying, you don't want to pull on this. You don't want to try to pull it back from the glass, as it normally will actually just crack the housing of this little plastic bezel. So always use your playing card to remove it. So I'm going to give it a little bit more heat here. Try to work our way around it. Now you want to be very careful of the cable that's behind it right here. You don't want to hit that or damage it in any way. Alright, there we go. We have our display separated from the plastic bezel. Now through the steps of this, I like to make sure and double check that it still functions properly. So I'm going to put the phone back together here and power it on. Alright, so you can see that I went ahead and reassembled the device. We're just going to go ahead and press the power button here. See if it's going to pop on for us. Now I'd suggest that you test your display as you go through the process as well. There's no point in continuing if you crack it. There's no point in cutting off all the glass and wasting all that time. So every once in a while, just try to hook it back up and see how well it functions. I'm just going to double check the touch function here real fast as well. Alright, looks like it's functioning well. The next step in this process is to go ahead and take the glass off of the display. So here we have our screen removed from the phone again, and you can see in the upper right hand corner we've removed a little bit of glass off of it. We're going to use some playing cards, and we'll use a hot air gun, the same one I was using before, to go ahead and heat the display up and get the glue to a point of melting. Now if you caught in the title, this says glass only educational, and one of the reasons behind that is this is the first time that I've ever done a glass removal on this particular phone, and I want to share the information that I found with you about this glass removal. And that is that the optical clear adhesive that they've used on this particular phone is very strong. It actually dissipates heat very fast also. What that means for this particular repair is it's very difficult. And when I was trying to remove this display the conventional way, which is playing cards and a heat gun, I actually overheat the display and I put a burn into it. And I'll show you what that looks like, which is really the big concern when you're trying to remove the display, is either cracking it or burning it. Now you may be able to avoid that with a lower temperature on your heat gun. Basically I'm using an infrared thermometer to tell me how hot the glue is. You don't want to get it above about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Hotter than that and you could actually burn the screen, which is what happens within this video. So really what I'm doing, so I heated it up and I'm pushing my card in, and you'll see that the glue will separate. It'll kind of do this like white spider webbing. It almost looks like you're pushing out some kind of a silicone, which is almost what the type of glue that it is. And once you get it nice and warm, you can do this. Now if it's too cold and the glue and you can't push your card in, and then you sometimes will crack your display, which is the other concern. Now when it's really shattered like this one is, it's got a lot of little cracks. It's actually more difficult because each individual cracked area cools differently than the one next to it, depending upon how much surface area, how hot the glass is. So you need to take your time when you're doing this. Now it can be done. You just have to be very patient, and you'll have to heat up the display many times with your hot air gun or whatever you're using. Now if you have a hair dryer, if you can position it over the display so it's constantly receiving heat, that might actually be beneficial to the repair. That might actually save you some time. Now if you have a hot plate, this repair will be very easy. I actually end up using a hot plate in the end. I'm just testing the temperature. It's actually really low right here. You can see that I got to heat it up again, even though it started at the top. If you have a hot plate and some molybdenum wire, then this repair is really pretty simple. You can do this in just a few seconds. The problem with that is that those tools will cost you about $100. So if you're not doing this repeatedly, then it may not be worth it. But the playing card and the heat gun method will work. You just have to take your time. You have to be extremely careful. I got a little careless when I was doing this one, and I overheated it, and that's what caused it to happen. And this is actually one of the first displays I've ever actually burned in before. I've damaged a polarizer on a display, but I've never actually burnt the actual LED before. So if that tells you anything about the difficulty of this particular glass removal, just be aware of that. Now also, something that I find that can be helpful is basically covering up the portion of the screen that you've already removed with the card. Now it doesn't shield it from that much heat, but it can dissipate a little bit, so if you're going to heat it up, I would suggest doing this. And you'll actually see when it burns. It'll actually turn kind of a yellowish color on the display, and then behind it, once you turn it on, it'll be like pink or a different color depending upon the burn itself. You might hear it crack a little bit. You might hear some cracking, and it kind of freaks you out because you think it might be your display that's cracking. Normally it's just the glass, but if you have any issues or concerns like, oh man, I might have just damaged my display, hook it up to your phone again, the logic board, plug the battery in, and see how it functions. I mean, if it's not working, then it's not worth continuing. So just be aware of that. It's an easy trick to do instead of wasting your time and wondering. You can see that there's slivers on this phone, so you have to take each sliver off at a time. And the reason why that is if you try to do more, and one's cooler than the other, then you could damage your display. Now, if it only has a single crack in it, actually it's a lot easier to remove. You just need to make sure it's warm enough to slide your card through it. Just take your time and be patient. So in this particular video, I'll show you both methods, the card method, and then I'll use the hot plate method. Now, normally on displays, I just use the hot plate, but I understand a lot of people can't afford the tools, or the whole point of doing this is to save money, and buying a hot plate would defeat the purpose of trying to do this yourself, a DIY project like this. I know these screens are actually expensive. I think they're a couple $100 right now to replace on the phone. So this is pretty attractive thing to do, since the glass itself is maybe only $10 or so. You can definitely tell the difference between when it's heated and not heated. The stuff just comes right off, where compared to when it cools down, just a few seconds after you heat it up, it's much harder to go ahead and remove the glass. See, that wasn't very long that I had heated up, and now I can barely even get my playing card to fit underneath it. It just doesn't even want to slide at all through it. And in comparison to Samsung phones or iPhones that I've done, this glue is very different. I would actually compare it to the HTC M8 glue, where it's a little bit thicker, a little bit harder to work with. Try to clean up some of the glass fragments underneath. Normally I could have the entire display off of a different phone by now. This one's just so much trickier to get the glass to remove off of. So now I've been working on this display for a total of about 20 minutes, and I really haven't made that much progress on it. So I'm going to skip to the point where I show you where I kind of overheated a little bit, so you can see what that looks like. And then I'll show you the way that I actually get the glass off. It's easier. So I'm just using my heat gun, getting it a little bit warmer up here at the top so I can get a starting point. And right here is where it gets a little too warm. You can see that it's yellowed now, right where I put my card at. I have to pull this little sliver off. You can see that there's a burn-in the display right here. Now the good point is I got it hot enough where I can make the glue melt a little bit, but it's to the point where the screen is having a hard time. Since the glue is already starting to solidify a little bit, even after I got it hot enough to the screen's breaking point. So something to be aware of. This is going to be a very tedious process if you're going to do this with a heat gun and a playing card. Alright, now I'm going to show you the easier method. I have this hot plate here. This is actually a screen removal tool. I've taken a piece of playing card and some strapping tape and put it around the display so I can actually get a grip onto it to remove it. So we're going to just go ahead and clamp this down. And really the goal of this hot plate is the silver surface will get up to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, where it'll keep the glue at a melting point. And then we'll take some wire and basically slide it in between the glass and the LCD, and it's a molybdenum wire. It's made so it doesn't scratch. It's actually very, very smooth. This is the preferred method to remove glass. This machine probably costs about 130 bucks off of like Amazon. So if you're doing a lot of displays, this is what I would suggest using. If you're just trying to do this fix at home, I'm not saying the playing card method won't work. But you just need to be really careful with how hot you get the screen. So something to keep in mind. So using the separation tool, we have our wire here. We can just go ahead and take it and slide this underneath the screen. It can be a little bit tricky since I've cut the top portion of the glass off. It's not exactly warm enough yet, so I'm just going to give it a few more seconds to heat up. Alright, now that it's reached the temperature we want it to, we can take our wire and slide it in between. And basically you're going to use a cutting motion to get this started. Now even this process on this phone is slower than other phones. So normally I don't have a problem with the machine moving. It's getting a lot of resistance from this glue. This glue is just really, really tricky. So we're just going to have to kind of cut it back and forth, work our way down. You can see as I pull the wire back, a lot of the glue is going to come out with it, which is a little abnormal for a particular display. So it's going back and forth, and the reason why I keep pulling it backwards is there's so much resistance in the glue that I want to make sure that I'm not going to crack the display by letting those pieces of glue clumps get underneath the screen and the glass and press upwards and then damage it. So I pull the wire out to remove those as we work our way down the phone. See, it's really starting to clump up on the wire too, which is a little odd for a Loca or a clear adhesive here. Kind of makes me wonder if this glass has been replaced on this display before. I mean, normally if you've used Loca adhesive on a display, it's really hard to get it back off. But I haven't seen a video for this particular repair on this phone for a glass-only replacement. So if you have any comments about this, if you find it to be a lot easier, if the glue is a lot more liquid when you get it to the temp, I'd really like to hear about it. You can toss it down in the comments. But like I was saying, the whole point of this video is that there's not any other glass-only replacements, and before you try to attempt it, Hopefully you can get some education from this video, and hopefully have you make a successful repair. Maybe you won't damage your screen like I did, getting it a little too warm. Screen's starting to pull up, so I'm just putting my thumb on it to get some heat back onto that portion of the phone screen. There's a lot of glue still attached to the wire. Go ahead and pop this off here. I'll try to get a better lock down here at the bottom. See if that helps out. Alright, so we can continue. If you're going to try this method, make sure that when you're using this, that you're pulling the string down towards the hot plate and not up towards the actual display. There we go, we made our way all the way through. Now our display should be separated from the glass, which it is. You can see the burn spot nice and clear there in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to go ahead and test it and see exactly how it functions. It doesn't look like any sort of a large polarizer portion got cut off in the process of doing this, which is sometimes what happens with these screen replacement as well. Go ahead and clip our battery in place. We got our display hooked up here. We're going to go ahead and just power it on once we find our power button here. Put it back in its slot. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Powered on. You can see that it's still functioning properly. There's the little burn mark right there. You can see that it's pink on this particular display. Now this is an AMOLED screen, so that means when we apply the liquid optical adhesive, it'll be a lot easier than on an LCD screen where it has the light box on the back. It has a touch function. Still functions for us, perfect. So we're going to continue this process, and I'll show you the rest of the video. I'll throw the remaining videos down in the description. If you found the video helpful, hit the like button. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them for you.